but I think that our country needs people who love her and are committed to our people and committed to the very best based on what our founders intended and what our Constitution is designed and what I believe God will be pleased with. And that's what I'm going to fight for in this election. So let me just say that, of course, on November 6th, we had a very disappointing moment. And I think it was all the more painful because all of us expected a different outcome. We just didn't expect, with the economy being what it is, with the kind of behavior we saw from this administration, some of the statements that were made, we just couldn't believe that our fellow citizens would again elect an administration that would continue down the same path. And it's clear that they intend to continue down the same path. I mean, not that it surprises any of us, but I mean, they're doubling down on their effort, and we just didn't expect our fellow citizens to do that. But folks, let me tell you something. We have a Chicago machine politician in the White House who hires people and gives out goodies and demands loyalty and basically has bought the presidency for another 4 years. So that's what we've got, and now we've got to wipe away our tears and we've got to pick up the weapons of political warfare again, and we've got to redouble our efforts. We've got to learn from our mistakes, and we've got to once again determine we're not only going to drive him out of the White House, we're going to drive out that whole cabal and never let him back again. Virginia laid the foundations of this nation. Virginia provided the vision that allowed us to become the greatest nation on earth. And I believe that Virginia is called upon in this hour to lead again. I think Virginia has got to be the state that says, no, we are a nation of individual liberty and not government control over our every action. We are a nation of personal responsibility, not government dependence in order to survive. That we are a nation of entrepreneurship, not government regulatory suffocation of the productive and creative capacities of the American people. And that we are a nation of property rights that believe we have a right to our property and do with it what we wish. We desperately need leadership in this country. And we've got to have leadership that is able to articulate our values in a way that helps people understand that we care about them, that we're interested in them. We don't hold these values because we hate people. Right. We hold them because we believe this is what allows people to fulfill their God-given potential. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to be able to reach the highest heights that they can in this nation. And you cannot do that, folks. You cannot do that based on the values that this administration espouses. We need to tell these young people who seem to be so enamored with Barack Obama that study the lesson of history. Collectivism never lifts up anybody. It brings everybody down. Amen. It's a pathway to mutually shared misery. That's not what our country needs. We need to tell these young single women who apparently voted for him overwhelmingly, we care about you, but we want you and we want your children to live and to be able to reach your God-given potential. We want you to be able to start businesses. We want you to be able to have gainful employment. We don't want you relegated to a subsistence life that is passed down from generation to generation. We've got to tell our Hispanic citizens, yes, we're glad to have you as fellow citizens of the greatest nation in the world. And we want you to work with us to uphold the rule of law, to create a rational immigration system, to protect our borders and our security. But we don't hate Hispanics. No. We love our country, and we want to have a rational way of allowing people to come and enjoy the benefits that we've enjoyed. And I think if we will stop talking about Hispanics and talk to them, I think we will find that they'll be an audience. And we got to say to members of the black community, your values are our values. And you have been lied to.
Amen.
You have been told that we hate you. It's a lie. You've been told that we're against you. It's a lie.
Right.
We respect your place in this country. We honor you as children of God. We want you to fulfill all that He has put in you. And we have values that we believe allow that to happen. You're being manipulated. You're being treated like pawns in somebody's political game.
Amen.
And we want you to be free to fulfill all that God has done for you to fulfill. Folks, we have got to be unashamed and unabashed and unequivocal about our conservative message. It's the right message. It's true. It's good. It works.
Right.
And then we got to stand up for the constitutional freedoms that make this country great. You know, this nation is the greatest nation mankind has ever known. We are a constitutional republic, folks. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. And we've got to uphold that. And our citizens, most of whom don't even understand that. They don't get that. The Constitution's being trampled. And they don't know it may be you or me today, but it'll be them tomorrow. And so we've got to remind them of what our founding fathers had in mind when they crafted the Constitution. In fact, you know, I'm reminded of James Madison, a fellow Virginian. This is what he said in Federalist Paper number 45. The powers delegated by the Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Yes. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. The former will be exercised principally on external objects as war, peace, negotiation, foreign commerce, which the power of taxation will for the most part be connected. The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all which in the ordinary course of affairs concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. Folks, we got to restore constitutional balance to our country. The 10th Amendment is there for a reason. It's not window dressing. It was intended to suggest that which governs closest to the people is given more latitude because the people can hold it accountable.
Right.
That the federal government should be limited and held at bay because it is far off and unaccountable. So we've got to come back to this balance. Now look, here's what Madison speculated, that the day might come when the federal government would overreach its powers. Here's what he said would be checks on that overreach. He said the disquietude of the people, their repugnance and refusal to cooperate, the frowns of the executive of their state, legislative devices in opposition, other states joining in unison, sounding a general alarm and making concerted plans of resistance. But then he said this, he asked this, but what degree of madness could ever drive the federal government to such extremity? Well, now we know the answer. Yeah, power madness. A hunger to control people. And you know what, folks? This is a perfect description of Obamacare. Yeah, I do call it Obamacare, and it's got to go. I refuse to give up on the idea that through state resistance, we can stop the encroachment of the federal government into our doctor's office and into our private medical lives. We're going to draw the line here in Virginia and say this way and no further. If you give me the opportunity, I'll work with the governor, with the attorney general, and with our state legislature, and with all of our local officials to see to it that Virginia upholds its state sovereignty and stops the federal government from walking in here and trampling on the rights of our citizens. Now, folks, we have a battle ahead of us. Let there be no mistake. Our founding fathers not only gave us a political vision for our country, a governmental vision, they gave us a moral and spiritual vision.
That's right. They
believed that our nation would not work without virtue. that there had to be something within the people that caused internal restraint, and that they did not simply look to government only to control the lives of people, that they looked to themselves. That's what self-governance is ultimately all about. They believe that there are absolutes, that there's truth. They believe that our rights come from our Creator. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Absolutes. A vision of morality and virtue. Folks, I simply refuse to back off on the idea that every unborn child has a right to live. Amen. We've got to stand up for that idea. And I refuse to be pigeonholed and marginalized and called a bigot and a hater because I believe that marriage is between one man and one woman. Virginia's got to lead the way. Virginia has got to be the state that reminds our fellow countrymen what it is to be a constitutional republic. Virginia's got to be the state that reminds our fellow countrymen what it is to be a free people. Virginia's got to remind our fellow countrymen where we've come from and therefore where we're going. And Virginia's got to be the state that shows our people that the 21st century can be the greatest century in the history of our country. We can experience more economic prosperity and more freedom and unity across racial and across cultural lines. We can break down these barriers. We can fulfill the vision of one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm here today say I'm running as a candidate for lieutenant governor, hoping that you will give me an opportunity to take that message to our Commonwealth and to our country. I see the lieutenant governor's office not only as an opportunity to break tie votes, not only as an opportunity to influence the legislature, but I see it as a platform for calling our fellow Virginians and perhaps even our fellow countrymen back to the foundational principles that made this the greatest nation on earth. Now, George Washington, when he faced General Howe in New York at the opening of the Revolutionary War, Howe had 32,000 troops. George Washington had 10,500, and 3,000 of them were sick. George Washington surveyed the situation, and he said, "This battle may determine the fate of this nation." He said, "But with a firm commitment to conquer or die and resolution that the blessing of heaven is upon us," he said, "we will succeed and we will have victory." Well, Howe did attack. George Washington had to retreat. But that battle did not determine the fate of the nation. It was the second statement that he made that did. The blessing of heaven prevailed, and he was ultimately successful, and he ultimately had the victory. Folks, this last election may have been our first engagement with Howe, but guess what? We're going to defeat him, and we're going to win the victory, and we're going to reestablish the foundational principles upon which this nation was built. Now, Ronald Reagan called our country a city set on a hill. Well, let me tell you something. The lights may seem a little dim right now. But let's, as Virginia, turn our lights up as bright as we know how. Let's let God show us the way. Let's let liberty light the way. And let's let Virginia lead the way.